हरि ओम। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करभावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste friends. Team Paramvedanta welcomes you all for the session 16 of Kathopanishad. We have started studying first Valli of second chapter in our last session, which we will continue in today's session and take up mantras 6 to 10 for our study. We have with us Dr. Satyanarayana Lele, Dr. Amitabh Saharoy, Dr. Ambika, and Dr. Kumar Prasad to explain these mantras. Dr. Hegde sir will give us the deeper thoughts. Now, before Hegde sir gives us the introduction to the day's session, let us listen to Dr. Anupama Shetty, who will give us a recap of the mantras we studied in the previous session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A recap, Adhyaya 2, Valli 1, mantras 1 to 5. The mantras 1 and 2 here describe the Vyatireka, or the negative aspect of extrovertedness. Paranchikani Vyatrinat Swayambhu Tasmat Parang Pashyati Na Antaratman. Parachikaman Anuyanti Bhala Te Mrityo Yanti Vitatasya Pasham. Paranchikani Vyatrinat Swayambhu. What does this mean? Swayambhu is Ishvara, or the creator, and Vyatrinat means afflicted. Khani is the sense organs. This means the creator has disabled our sense organs. How? Paranchi, by making them extroverted. This keeps us eternally busy. Balastavat krida sakta, tarunastavat taruni sakta. In the words of Yamadharmaraja, Paranchikaman anuyanti bhala. Therefore, he says, Tasmat parang pashyati na antaratman. We are permanently busy with parang, the bahya prapancha, and one never turns to the Atma. What is the result? Te mrityohu yanti vitatasya pasham. Yamadharmaraja says, the immature or bala, the extrovert, paranchikaman people chase anuyanti, the materialistic goals. What is the result? They get ensnared in his vitatasya pasham, the all-pervading trap of punarapi jananam, punarapi manaram. So what should we do? We should realize that this instinctive extrovertedness of the mind is a huge obstacle to spiritual progress. It is a shodhana. The solution is the sadhana, prescribed here as non-extrovertedness of the mind. Manasaha antarmukhatvam. An extrovert mind perceives only anatma, shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, and gandha, the fivefold segments of creation. But the Upanishad describes Atma as a Shabda, a Sparsha, a Rupa, a Rasa, a Gandha. I should know that I cannot discover Nirguna Brahma by indulging in Saguna Anatma. Yamadharmaraja says, however, there are a few exceptional people who consider it worth pursuing Atma Vichara. And who are they? The Kaschit Dhira, the Nitya Anitya Vastu Vivekis. They seek nothing here amidst the impermanent. Adhruveshu dhruvam amritatvam vitva iha kinchit na prarthayante. How? Parang Atman Pratyag Atman Aikshat, by discovering that the Atma is Pratyag, or distinct from the experience world. And how do they manage? By Guru Shastra Upadesha. Mantra 3 describes Atma Swarupam. Here, Yamadharma Raja uses a prakriya called Drik Drishya Viveka, or observer-observed analysis, to explain the Atma Tattvam is distinctly different from the observed universe. I, the experiencer, am Drig Eva Natu Drishyate. I am not the object of experience. For example, if I experience a donkey, I am not a donkey. I experience my body, I'm not this body. I experience my thoughts, I'm not my mind. Yet, every experience reveals the experiencer. Pratibodha viditam matam. So, who am I? I am the observer consciousness. Yena etena, which is intimately available. Vijanati, through which a person experiences everything. Rupam, rasam, gandham, shabdam, sparsham, cha maitunam. Yamadharma Raja asks, what else could possibly exist beyond this? Kim atra parishishyate etad vaitat. This is that Atma, which is your Swarupam. Mantra 4 describes Atma as Avastha Traya Sakshi, the witness of Jagrat, Swapna, and Shushupti Avasthas. Whether I experience the objective world outside or the subjective dream world, although there is Vishaya, Kala, and Desha Vedha, the only common factor is the witness consciousness. And who is this witness? I am the Avastha Traya Sakshi Chaitanyam. Yena, by this Sakshi Chaitanyam alone, Anupashyati, a person experiences Swapnantam, meaning Swapna Padarthan, Swapna Desha, Kala, Vastu, and also Jagratantam. So, what is the nature of this consciousness? Mahantam Vibhum. It is infinitely big and all pervading in the absolute sense, the Adyantika sense, not the Apekshika sense. Mahatva means Matva. Matva means I should know aham iti. Know this Atma as yourself. And what is the benefit? Na shochati. Once you know aham brahmasmi, there is no sorrow. Finally, Mantra 5 describes Sarva Atma Bhava, the same Atma, the same original consciousness, manifests through both Prajna, the Karana Sharira, and Ishvara, the Karana Prapancha. So, who is that Atma? I am that Atma. Aham eva idagam sarvam. I alone am both Jivatma and Paramatma. I alone am Prajna and Ishvara. Yaha Atmanam Antikat Veda. Yaha means this seeker, the mumukshu, knows Veda, the Atma, intimately, abhedena, as himself, antikat. He also knows that the same Atma which is reflected in the Samashti Karana Prapancha, Maya, as Ishvara, who is Bhuta Bhavyasya Ishanam, the Lord of the past, present, and future, is also reflected in the Vyashti Karana Sharira as Prajna. What happens is that although it is the same original consciousness, which is just described as Mahantam Vibhum, when it gets reflected through this limited Vyashti Karana Sharira, the Jiva, it seemingly becomes a limited entity, a Karta Bhukta, a Samsari. The Prajna Jiva becomes Madhvadham, a karma phala bhokta or a samsari. Madhu here means honey or karma phalam, and adaha is the consumer or experiencer. This jnani understands that both this prajna samsari and Ishvara are manifestations of the same Atma, the original consciousness. Tataha na vijugupsate. He never feels a sense of insecurity. This is moksha. Etad vaitad. This Prajna Ishvara pair is none other than you, the Atma. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anupama, for a wonderful recap of the first 5 mantras of the first Valli of the second chapter of Kathopanishad. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om the more we study the Kathopanishad, one thing is so convincing. We are so fortunate. We are so fortunate to be able to study perhaps the most wonderful of all the Upanishads. The Upanishads are considered as the ultimate as far as human consciousness is concerned. If you want to know about our true nature, the best descriptions come in the Upanishads. And among all the Upanishads, we will see what a wonderful Upanishad, Kathopanishad, is to be able to understand our true nature, to be able to understand this consciousness, which is that which is enlivening our mind. Once Bhagwan Ramana was asked, how many Upanishads should we study? And he asked, to see yourself, how many mirrors do you need? That means one Upanishad, if you are able to study completely, it will give you all that is required. We have now come to the second chapter, and you will see from now on, perhaps until the very end, you will see some of the best verses in the Upanishadic literature ever. And the verses that were just explained by Dr. Anupama, the first 5 verses, and the next 5 verses that we are going to study today are some of the most important verses, because invariably you will hear this phrase which comes out of meter. It does not fall into the meter. The Acharya, Yamadharmaraja, emphasizes Etad Vaitad. Please note, this is important. This is that, O Nachiketa. You are looking for immortality. You want to discover something anyatra dharma, anyatra adharma, something beyond time. You know, if you want that, this is that. Each of those verses, Yamadharmaraja, 12 times. So that means there are 12 important mantras, and 12 times this comes. And in among the 5 mantras, at least 4 of them will have Etad Vaitad. Now, we are body-mind complex with consciousness. And as we study the Upanishad, we need to be able to focus on Mano Buddhi Hankara Chittani Naham. I am not this body-mind complex. Then who am I? Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. Can I break up Chidananda Rupa as Sat Chidananda Rupa? That is why our Prakarana Granthas like Tattva Bodha are so important, that we bring in together, where we get a definition, what is Sat, what is Chit, what is Ananda, and so on. By going through all that, we discover, and of course through each of these Upanishadic mantras also, that this consciousness, which we can call as Chit, because of which my body is alive, is not limited to this body, but it is an infinite, all-pervading entity, enlivening my body, enlivening everybody's body. And this is exactly what Shri Krishna says in the 13th chapter, Kshetrajnam, the one who is aware of everything that is happening, Cha Pimam Vidhi. That means there is that conscious principle in all of us. Remember, it is none other than me. That means this is what is called Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. I have to claim that I'm not this body-mind complex, which is graying, going, and graying, going. There are 3 things. I forget the third one. So why focus on this temporary entity which is there for some time and not there? And that is only the instrument of my interaction. But I am the Kshetrajna. And Shri Krishna says that Kshetrajna is myself. And I am, that is my real me. Suddenly I realize that this consciousness, this enlivening principle, is not something ordinary. It is something which has been there from the very beginning and that will always be there. In today's class, you will have what is called Jivatma Paramatma Aikya. Exactly what I said, that consciousness within me is the same as the consciousness everywhere. Now, we give 2 different words when consciousness is referred to as the total. When you talk of the total consciousness, That Upanishadic term is Brahman. The same consciousness within this limited entity, symbolizes by the pot space, can be called as Atma. This is a beautiful example to understand that the space within the pot and the space outside the pot is seemingly made distinct because of the pot wall. Supposing the pot breaks, then you will see there is nothing that happens to the limited space within the pot, because at all periods of time, this limited space was one with the total space. And just because of the walls of the pot and our focus on that entity, there is seeming a limited space here compared to the total space. I have had the privilege of watching Swami Dayananda giving his talks. Invariably, when he sits, just like Swami Chinmayananda had that BMI chart, Swami Dayananda used to have three pots, one big pot, one medium-sized pot, and a small pot. And all his explanation was trying to say that the pot space and the total space are one and not to have. And each time, Yamadharmaraja, when he says yetad, vaitad, that is where we need to stop and pay all our attention to. Another example given to make a distinction between this body-mind consciousness, this body-mind complex and consciousness, is the hand and light example. Now, you are seeing my hand. How are you seeing my hand? Because there is light on this hand. This light is not part of my hand. It is not a property of my hand, which is not a product of my hand. It is completely independent entity. Because of that, it illumines and makes my hand seen. Now, that light is not affected by anything good or bad in my hand. It is asangaha. So too, consciousness is unaffected by anything that happens to my body. And if my hand is removed, you do not see the light as a distinct entity. Now it has become a diffuse light. So it requires an entity to reflect it to manifest, but the light does not go anywhere. So too, when the body drops, consciousness would not manifest from this particular body, but nothing happens to consciousness. Now, this is somehow we need to understand, and somehow we need to claim that I'm not this body-mind, but I'm consciousness, because as body-mind, we have no complete solution to any problem. And as consciousness, there is no problem. So all that we need to do is, at any stage in our life, see yourself as consciousness playing this role of this limited body-mind. And whatever my body-mind has to do, play that role very sincerely. And this gives us total freedom from samsara or bondage. Why are the verses in today's classes very difficult to understand? It is difficult to understand because unless our foundations in Tattva Bodha are very clear. The next Upanishad that we're going to study will be Mandukya. In Mandukya, this distinction between waker, dreamer, deep sleep, and what is this Turiya, the fourth, which is not distinct from the waker, dreamer, and the deep sleep, that which is in and through. The Turiya refers to Atma, or the silence, when we are chanting Om. A, U, Ma represents the waking phase, the dream phase, and the deep sleep phase. And all of them are the silence before chanting Om, and there is a silence at the end of the chanting of Om. That which is there all through, that represents Turiya, or the silence, which is more important than the A, U, and Ma. Now, because I have three bodies, I have the gross body, I have the subtle body, and the causal body. And corresponding to this, there are the three universes: the gross universe, the subtle universe, and the causal universe. So there are three pairs of reflecting media. So therefore, when this Atman, or this consciousness, like pot space and total space, when it reflects off from the gross body, the reflected consciousness is called Vishwa. When the same consciousness is reflected from the entire universe, it's called Virat. So too, From the subtle body, it is Taijasa and Hiranyagarbha. And from the causal body, so mantra 5, which was last explained by Dr. Anupama in the previous class, spoke about Prajna and Ishvara. In today's class, you will see mantras number 6, 7, and 9. 6, 7, and 9 talk about Hiranyagarbha and Taijasa. Mantra number 8 talks about Vishwa and Virat, which means so although there is a difference, it is only because of the difference in the reflecting media, but it is the one consciousness that we need to be able to see. And if you're able to see the one in the many, then you have got what Vedanta has to explain. I will not come in between each speakers. The moment you see your name, I will request you to explain the allotted verse. Dr. Satyanarayana, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Verse 2.1.6 goes like this. Yaha purvam tapaso jatam adbhya purvam ajayata guham pravishyati sthantam yon bhute bhirvyapasyata etad vaitat. Going by the verse meaning, Yaha purvam tapaso jatam means one who was born in the beginning from tapas. Adbhya purvam ajayata, who was born before the waters. Guham pravishya tishthantam, having entered and residing in the heart. Yon bhuterbhir vyapasyatha, with the body and sense organs, he know. Etad vaitat, this is indeed that. Means to say, the verse meaning is, he knows Atma to be that Hiranyagarbha, who was born in the beginning from that tapas, a Brahman, who was born before the waters, and having entered the heart, who resides there with the body and sense organs, this is indeed that. Before we get on to this, let us revise again what we have earlier seen in Tattva Bodha. When the sunlight is reflected through a reflecting medium mirror, the reflected light enters the dark room. As many number of mirrors we have, so many reflected lights we can have. Thus, original sunlight has many reflected lights through respective reflecting mediums. Similarly, the original consciousness Brahman is reflected through many reflecting mediums to manifest as different reflected consciousness. Next slide. This table summarizes the creation. When consciousness is expressing fully through the physical body, it is called waker consciousness. When expressing through the mind, it is called dreamer consciousness or taijasa. And the very same consciousness, when expressing through the dormant causal body, when we are in sleep state, when it is illuminating the total blankness of the sleep state, it is called as prajna. Only one original consciousness expresses itself through these various media. At the totality level, Stula Prapancha, the total gross universe, is parallel to Stula Shariram, the individual body. Sukshma Prapancha corresponds to Sukshma Shariram and the Karana Prapancha corresponds to Karana Shariram. The very same original consciousness manifests as these also. When it manifests through the gross universe, it is called Virata Chaitanyam. Through the subtle universe, it is called as Hiranyagarbha. And when manifesting through the Samasti Prapancha, at the time of Pralayam, when the whole universe resolves, it is called as Ishvara or Antaryami. Lord Yama, in these following verses, points out that the same original consciousness expresses as all the 6 reflected consciousness. Prajna and Ishvara has been explained in verse 5. Taijasa and Hiranyagarbha has been explained in verse 6, 7, and 9. And Vishwa Virat has been explained in verse 8. Next slide. The tree is a manifestation of plant which is born out of a seed. Thus, gross universe is born out of subtle universe, which in turn is born out of causal universe. The verses 6 and 7 discuss the subtle universe or Sukshma Prapancha. In this verse, prior to waters is used. The Hiranyagarbha or the total mind was born prior to five elements, which is earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Here, water stands for five elements, and Akasha, the space, is a grosser manifestation from the total mind. Coming on to next verse, 2.1.7. Ya pranena sambhavati atidirdevatamai गुहां प्रविश्य तिष्ठान्तिं य भूतेर्भिर्व्यजायत etad vai tat. Going by the verse meaning, ya pranena sambhavati, who is born in the form of Hiranyagarbha, Aditir Devatamai, Aditi, who is embodiment of all deities, Guham Pravishya Tishthantim, having entered the heart and residing there, Ya Bhuterbhir Vyajayata, who is born along with the elements. Etad vai tat. This is indeed that. This verse meaning, next slide, is he knows Atma to be goddess Aditi, who is the embodiment of all deities, who is born in the form of Hiranyagarbha, who is born along with the elements and having entered the heart, who resides there. This is indeed that. Coming on to this slide, the subtle body or the Sukshma Shariram consists of 17 components, 5 sense organs of knowledge, that is Gyanendriyani, 5 organs of action, that is Karmendriyani, 5 pranas, that is Pancha pranas, and mind and the intellect. Each of these components or Indriyas is presided by a deity or Devata. Each deity is given a name in Tattva Bodha. The Indriya is at the individual level and Devata represents the total of Indriya of all the individuals. Hiranyagarbha is total of all the Devatas, Samashti Devata. Therefore, Upanishad says that these Devatas are born out of Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha is referred to as Prana Devata in this verse because the latter is most important Devata. We can manage without the function of any organ, but cannot survive with the function without the function of prana. In deep sleep, all the organs resolve into a person except pranas, which never stop during a person's life. Gross universe is a manifestation of subtle universe, which is thus born out of causal universe. So Hiranyagarbha was born out of Ishvara's tapas in the beginning of creation. He was born before the Virat principle or the gross universe. The macro Hiranyagarbha is present in the micro individual, who is referred to as Guha in this verse, called Taijasa by Tattva Bodha. This Taijasa experiences the world through the mind and sense organs. Aditi is one who consumes through the sense organs. This Taijasa Hiranyagarbha pair is none other than pure consciousness. Hari Om.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Verse 8. Aranyo nihito jata vedaha garbha iva shubhito garbha inibihi dive diva idyo jagra vayatibihi avishnobihi manushyebihi agnihi etat vaitat. Okay. In this mantra, Yamadharma Raja explains how consciousness manifests in the form of Virat and Vishwa, the macro and the micro, with the help of the fire principle. Can move to the next slide. Yeah. So we use the fire principle. The Virat or Sthula Prapancha is represented by Agni Tattvam or the fire principle. Why is Agni or fire taken as the symbol to represent Virat or Sthula? The reason is, if you take the 5 elements, the first element Akasha or space and the second element Vayu or air are formless. The next element Agni is the first visible element. Hence, The gross universe or the visible universe is symbolized using Agni. Agni Tattvam is both outside the body and inside the body. The fire we experience outside is called Vahya Agni or Virat or the macro. This is the fire that cooks the food. Then there is digestive fire within our body that cooks the food for the second time and converts the food into carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and minerals which our body absorbs. The second cooking takes place within the stomach through the internal fire. This is known as Vaishvavarnara Agni. Next, let us look at what type of fire our Upanishad talks about. The Upanishad does not associate Virat with any ordinary form of fire that we normally light with a matchstick or a lighter, but it considers the sacred fire that is used for rituals, which is Yagna Agnihi. There is a special method to light the ritual fire. It is done using two logs of wood known as arani. One log of wood is kept stationary. This is known as adho arani, and another log of wood is used as the churning rod, which causes friction and results in the fire. This is called uttara arani. Next, there are two kinds of people. One are the ritualistic type of people who offer oblations and worship the external fire. Then there are another class of people who perform rituals or worship the external fire. On the other hand, they do not perform external rituals. On the other hand, they meditate upon Virat and they treat the internal fire. So this is what is the analogy, and this brings the end of the verse 8. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Next slide. यतश्चोदेति सूर्यः अतस्तञ्यत्र गच्छति तं देवाः सर्वे अर्पिताः तदो नात्येति कश्चन एतद्वैतत्. So the running meaning is all the gods are based on that form which the sun rises and in which it sets. Indeed, nothing exceeds that, and this is indeed that. Next slide. This verse discusses about the Sukshma Prapancha. The aim is to establish oneness with the consciousness. I am aware of many things, thoughts, feeling, emotions, memory, aware of body, people, and what is the relationship between the awareness and the object, you and the universe. Upanishads teaches oneness, Sarvatma Bhava. The entire universe is one with you. The consciousness plus power of Maya projects this universe, and this projection appears at three levels: the causal universe, the subtle universe, and the gross universe. Hiranyagarbha pervades through the individual Sukshma Shariram. And this subtle body, at every stage, we have a pair of microcosm and the microcosm. We can understand with this an example of a seed. So the seed can be considered as the causal, the seedling as a subtle, and the tree as a sthula sharira. So when the original consciousness manifests through the universe, it is called Hiranyagarbha. Manifesting through the Samashti Prapancha. The Atma manifests as a Hiranyagarbha. This Sukshma Sharira consists of 17 components: 5 Jnanendriya, 5 Karmendriya, Panch Prana, mind and intellect. And each component is presided by a Devata. So each Devata is a part of a Hiranyagarbha. The Devata represents the total of all individual deity. The Hiranyagarbha is total of all Devatas. The Lord Yam says the consciousness alone manifests in micro and macro, just as the water alone manifests as the wave as well as the vast ocean. The truth of wave and ocean is water. All the power is manifested in the Hiranyagarbha, and in the end they dissolve back to the Ishvara. Ishvara disappears into what? Nothing. Ishvara remains. Ishvara remains from eternity to eternity, producing universe, maintaining and dissolving. Hiranyagarbha can be understood as a pure consciousness, and when it becomes a pure consciousness, Brahman all the time, Brahman, Ishwar to Brahma, is accompanied by Jnana. It is like the wave rises in the oceans and goes back to the oceans. All the waves taken together is a Hiranyagarbha. Individual waves are individual mind. Ocean is Ishvara. Water is Brahman. How long it takes an ocean to become water? No time. And how long it takes and how long it takes a wave to go back to the ocean? They are always in the ocean, but they disappear. They take time. Ocean to water and Ishwar to Brahman happens only through the jnana. The Hiranyagarbha is the pure consciousness. The instrument of the manifestation may differ, but there is only one consciousness. Dhanyavad.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The next verse, the 10th verse, is a summary verse of the previous 4-5 verses. It goes like this. Edeveha tadamutra, edamutra tadanviha, mrityosa mrityum apnoti, ya iha naneva pashyati. Edeveha tadamutra. Whatever indeed is here is there. Edamutra tadanviha. Whatever is there is likewise here. Mrityosa mrityum apnoti means he goes from death to death. He transmigrates. Ya iha naneva pashyati. Who sees any difference between here and there? The next slide, we'll extend the same example of the wave, drop, ocean, and water. So here, as students of Advaita, our eventual outcome of our spiritual journey is to get into oneness, the singularity. In our journey towards that singularity, there will be phases when we will be bombarded with the plurality, which is very obviously hitting us every day. We see many things around us, some bigger, stronger than us, and some which are under our control. So Advaita the aim of Advaita is to take to that singularity from plurality. Plurality is death. Singularity, Brahman. That's where we are heading. Once Swami Ramana was asked Swamiji, how to treat others. So Sri Ramana appeared perplexed for a moment, and suddenly with clarity he responds, how to treat others? There are no others. For a Jnani, there is nothing beyond himself. That himself, which includes everything which is perceivable and beyond that, both transcendental as well as immanent. So we have reached a stage after going through the previous verses where we can put everything in our field of understanding into here and there. This signifies, in other words, me and other. There, here, other, me, ocean, drop, everything eventually is one. So that's the state where we are heading to. And there are technical terms for this. As we see in the next slide, everything around us again falls into three categories. One is the physicality of it, the bhuta, sarupa. That's the stula sarupa. Either it can be at the prapancha level or at the individual jiva level. There's a physicality to it. That's the stula prapancha or stula sharira. And then there's a force, there's a sukshma, the subtle entity which is associated, embedded within this physicality, which is called the sukshma sharira or sukshma prapancha. And the source for both of this stula and sukshma Sharira and Prapancha is the Karana. That's the source. Karana Sharira or Karana Prapancha. The sum total of all the Stula Sukshma Karana Prapancha as well as Stula Sukshma Karana Sharira are given technical names. As we see in this slide, so if you consider waves, there's a reason why these waves forms in a pristine motion. And there's a force which will give a physicality to the wave. And similarly, at a microscopic level, there's for a drop too, there's a source why the drop eventually forms with a force which stays still for a while and then merges back into water. That's at the two levels. In the next slide, we see the technical names to recapitulate what we learned in the last few verses. The causal prapancha is called antaryami. At the sukshma level, the subtle prapancha is hiranyagarbha, and the gross sthula prapancha is virat. Similarly, here we can see here meaning like within at the jiva level. One is at the telescopic level, macroscopic level, one is at the microscopic level. At the jiva level, at the sharira level, the sum total of all the causality of all the jivas is called prajna. The sum total of all the sukshma shariras is called tejasa. And the sum total of all the stula sharira is called vishva. These three put together forms jiva. So these are actually we have to keep ourselves reminded that these are the reflected consciousness, both at the micro and macro level. They do not have an independent existence of their own. It is like the image which is formed on a screen, on a TV screen, or on a projected screen in a movie show, where without that projector and light, nothing appears. So these are all the reflected consciousness. The first three at the macro level, the Antaryami, Hiranyagarbha, and Virat, put together is called Ishvara. Similarly, at the micro level, at the Jiva level, at the individual level, the Prajna, Tejasa, and Vishwa combined together is called Jiva. This particular verse 10, is a sort of Mahavakya, we can say, because this gives a equation, Aikya Vakya, that is, this Ishvara and Jiva means the same. Jiva, Ishvara, Aikya. As we see in the next slide, it shows the essential oneness of the individual self and the universal self. That which is here alone is there, that which is there alone is here. And one who sees a plurality here, one who wants to see a difference between I am this micro drop and there's this huge ocean in front of me. I am eventually going to get immersed, submerged, and dissolved into this ocean, and I am afraid of that. For him, there is no way to come out of the cycle of Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. One who sees here plurality, as it were, will go from death to death. So that's the Jiva Ishvara Aikyam, the ultimate goal of Advaita we see in this verse. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hegde sir, and all speakers of the day for an excellent session. Thank you all friends for your involved participation in this divine journey. On Monday, let us tune in for the next session of Gift. Let us conclude this session with Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.